So, hi everyone. We will continue with the development of the cardiovascular system. This is the third part of the development of cardiovascular system. Still now, what we have seen are the two endothelial heart tubes appeared. They fused in the craniocaudal directions so that it will be called as the primitive heart. From cephalic to caudal end, they again showed constrictions and dilatations. Then after formation of these constrictions and dilatations, it will be called as the definitive heart. So the cephalic to caudal, the parts are the truncus arteriosus, bulbus cordis, primitive ventricle, primitive atrium and sinus venosus. After the formation of the definitive heart definitive heart undergoes folding and rotation, mainly by the primitive ventricle and by the bulbus cordis, so that it will be called as bulboventricular loop. At the end of this, if you see, the ventricle moves ventrally and to the right, atrium moves dorsally and to the left. Then we started with the changes in the interior of the heart. We started with the changes in the sinus venosus. Sinus venosus at first presented with body and two horns, so that this vitelline veins and umbilical veins enter the floor of the body of the sinus venosus. After the changes in this venous drainage, mainly the veins on the left side obliterate, so that at the end, if you see, right horn of the sinus venosus enlarges, body and the left horn of the sinus venosus diminishes in size. Then we also saw the formation of the interatrial septum still now. The interatrial septum started with the formation of the septum primum from the roof of the primitive atrium, so that it tries to reach the septum intermedium, which is formed by the dorsal and ventral endocardial cushions. Between the septum primum and septum intermedium, there is the foramen primum. After some time, septum primum fuses with the septum intermedium. There is a gap in the upper part. It will be called as foramen secundum. Then the septum secundum appeared to the right of the septum primum, incorporating the left venous valve of the sinoatrial orifice. So that now the valvular gap between this septum secundum and the septum primum will be called as valvular foramen or foramen ovale. Sinoatrial orifice is guarded by the right venous valve and left venous valve. Both venous valves meet at the upper end to form the septum spurium and at the lower end to form the sinus septum. So all these venous valves are incorporated in the interior of the right atrium, so that right venous valve forms the crista terminalis, valves of the inferior vena cava and valves of the coronary sinus. So the right atrium, the smooth part is formed from the absorbed right horn of the sinus venosus, and the rough part is derived from the right half of the primitive atrium. Left atrium, smooth part is derived from the absorption of the four pulmonary veins, and the rough part is derived from the left half of the primitive atrium. So still this we have covered in the previous classes of part 1 and part 2. In this part 3 section, we will see the changes mainly in the primitive ventricle, bulbus cordis and the truncus arteriosus. So now we will start with the primitive ventricle and bulbus cordis. The early part of the 6th week, septum intermedium divides this atrioventricular canal into right and left atrioventricular orifice. So, when the septation of the atrium is in progress, the interventricular septum exhibits its appearance in the early part of the sixth week from the floor of the bulboventricular cavity. So, the student should note this interatrial septum from the roof of the primitive atrium, interventricular septum from the floor of the bulboventricular cavity. The cephalic margin of the septum is free and concave. So this, if you see this growth of the ventricular septum takes place passively by the dilatation of the bulboventricular cavity on each side of the partition due to the hemodynamic forces working on the developing heart. This cephalic margin of the septum, if you see, it will present as dorsal horn and ventral horn. So this is how, if you see in the floor of the common bulboventricular cavity, a small interventricular septum starts to appear. Due to the expansion of the bulboventricular cavity, this septum appears. So this is again the septum has appeared little more so that it tries to reach the interventricular septum. So that it tries to reach the septum intermedium. If you see this dorsal horn of the free margin of the septum, it is continuous with the right edge of the dorsal AV cushion. Ventral horn of the free margin of the septum is continuous with the ventral AV cushion. So that the cephalic margin of the ventricular septum is arranged somewhat twisted manner. A ventricular foramen appears between the two ventricles. So it is trying to reach the septum intermedium, but there is a ventricular foramen between the two ventricles, cephalic to the free margin of the ventricular septum. Same like we have seen in the formation of the interatrial septum. So now proximal bulbar septum starts appearing. So proximal bulbar septum, where it forms the proximal part of the mid segment of the bulbus cordis or the conus cordis. Two bulbar ridges, right and left, appear in the conus cordis. The right bulbar ridge arises from the dorsal and right wall of the bulbus cordis. The left bulbar ridge arises from the ventral and left wall of the bulbus cordis. So both are continuous with the dorsal and ventral horns of the ventricular septum. These fusion of these two bulbar ridges form the proximal bulbar septum, which partially closes the interventricular foramen. To now close the last part of the septum, septum intermedium actively proliferates. So this will form the membranous part of the interventricular septum. How this septum intermedium actively participates in this process, if you see, the cells of the endocardial cushions proliferate from the right edge of the septum intermedium close to the gap between the ventricular septum and proximal bulbar septum, so that this persists as the membranous part of the interventricular septum. If you see why this ventricular foramen in the early embryonic life, same like foramen in the primitive atrium. So this foramen is essential in the early embryonic life, so that until the septation of the bulbus cordis and truncus arteriosus is complete. Now you can understand in this formation of interventricular septum in the next image. If you see in the beginning, from the floor of the bulboventricular cavity, interventricular septum has appeared. But there is a foramen existing between this, then that is trying to be covered by the proximal bulbar septum. Still now This proximal bulbar septum also not able to cover this ventricular foramen. Now if you see in the middle red color, that is the proliferation from the AV cushions. So that persists as the membranous part of the interventricular septum. So the interventricular septum is formed from three sources. The first formed interventricular septum in the floor, second is the proximal bulbar septum, and third is the from the AV cushions that will form the membranous part of the interventricular septum. So now ventricle has also been divided into two halves. So development of interventricular septum, three sources: ventricular septum, proximal bulbar septum, and septum intermedium. In development of right ventricle, inflowing rough part is derived from the proximal dilated part of the bulbus cordis and partly from the right part of the right ventricle. So the students should note the rough part will be formed from the primitive chambers. So that is the way to remember. Outflowing smooth part is derived from the conus cordis, dextroventral component. Development of left ventricle, inflowing rough part develops from the left part of the primitive ventricle. It should be. Outflowing smooth part is derived from the conus cordis, levodorsal component. Now we will move on to the formation of atrioventricular valves. Around the right and left atrioventricular canals, the mesenchymal cells proliferate to form collars of the endocardial cushions. The ventricular surface of the proliferated mass is excavated to form the atrioventricular valves, which are attached to the ventricular walls by the trabecular cords. These cords will be converted into chordae tendineae and papillary muscles. So like this, three leaflets are developed around the right atrioventricular canal and two leaflets around the left atrioventricular canal. So this is an additional note if you are asked: formation of the atrioventricular valves. So this picture I think you can understand. So first the cushions, endocardial cushions appear, then they are excavated so that they will be now completely transformed into the valves. So now it has been, all the chambers are almost divided: primitive atrium, bulbus cordis, primitive ventricle, and proximal part of the conus cordis also has been divided. So what is now left over is truncus arteriosus. So truncus arteriosus we have to see. Before that, between the truncus arteriosus and conus cordis, four endocardial cushions, ventral, dorsal, right and left, appear. So that right and left cushions fuse to form a transversely oriented distal bulbar septum. So this distal bulbar septum divides this conus cordis into a ventral pulmonary orifice and dorsal aortic orifice. So when they fuse like this, each orifice will be now provided with three cusps, which will be converted into semilunar pulmonary and aortic valves. So if you see from proximo-distally, when view it from above, the proximal bulbar septum is continuous spirally with the distal bulbar septum in the anti-clockwise manner. So proximal bulbar septum is appearing in the conus cordis. At the truncoconal junction, distal bulbar septum. So distal bulbar septum is mainly to divide this into two orifices and to form the semilunar valves. So this is how four endocardial cushion, right and left, and then dorsal and ventral, right and left fuses, so that two orifices appeared and three semilunar valves at the truncoconal junction. This is called distal bulbar septum. So what are the parts of the bulbous cord is and what they have given rise to, we will see in this table. Proximal part of the bulbous cordis will be giving rise to trabecular or the inflowing rough part of the right ventricle. Conus cordis will give rise to left ventricular outflow tract and right ventricular outflow tract. Truncus arteriosus will give rise to the ascending aorta and the pulmonary tract, which we will now see in this continuation. Truncus arteriosus is the cephalic end of the primitive U-shaped heart. If you see beyond the pericardial sac, the truncus dilates to form the aortic sac. Truncus arteriosus is now continuous as the aortic sac. Aortic sac will be divided into right and left limbs, which will be connected to the dorsal aorta by the 6 pairs of aortic arches. So this is what we are describing. Truncus arteriosus, if you see in the image, it is continuous with the aortic sac. Aortic sac is continuous with the dorsal aorta by the 6 pairs of aortic arches. They will run in the pharyngeal arches. So now internally the truncus is divided by the spiral shaped aorticopulmonary septum into two vessels. So the truncus arteriosus will give rise to ascending aorta and pulmonary trunk. It is divided by the spiral shaped septum. So that is the interesting feature you should note. If you see the septum in the proximal part, it is coronally oriented. In the middle part, anteroposterior position. More distally, it is coronally oriented. So that will explain the relations of the pulmonary trunk and ascending aorta in the adult thorax. If you see in the proximal part of this, pulmonary trunk will be ventral and ascending aorta will be dorsal. In the middle, if you see the relations, pulmonary trunk will be on the right side and ascending aorta will be on the left side. If you see in the distal part, ascending aorta will be in the front and pulmonary trunk in the posterior. So this, if you have seen these relations in the adult thorax, so now you can appreciate this spiral shaped aorticopulmonary septum. So this picture you can understand what I was explaining. So truncus arteriosus is divided by the spiral shaped aorticopulmonary septum in the, if you see the second image. So first image it is not divided. Second image, if you see, it is divided by the spiral shaped septum. If you see in the middle image in the upper part 1, 2, 3. So first how it is coronally oriented. But the pulmonary trunk is in the front, ascending aorta is in the back. Next, if you see, it is anteroposterior position. So pulmonary trunk is on the left side, aorta lies on the right side. More distally, the aortopulmonary septum is coronally oriented. Now, aorta lies in the front of the pulmonary trunk. So again, if you see in the lower part, you can see the spiral shape. How it is spiral, you can understand. And the red color indicates the aorta, blue color indicates the pulmonary trunk, so that this forms the relations in the adult heart. So these are the different relations between the ascending aorta and the pulmonary trunk. So to conclude with this parts of the definitive heart, what they have given rise to, which we have seen all these in the changes of the interior of the heart. Sinus venosus, right horn will give rise to smooth part of the right atrium. Left horn will give rise to coronary sinus. Primitive atrium, rough part of right atrium and rough part of left atrium. primitive ventricle, rough part of right ventricle and rough part of left ventricle. Bulbous cord is smooth part of right ventricle and smooth part of left ventricle. So as I have told already, primitive atrium and primitive ventricles will give rise to rough parts of the atrium and rough parts of the ventricles. Truncus arteriosus will give rise to ascending aorta and pulmonary trunk. So in this one table, if you know it thoroughly, you can understand the changes in the interior of the heart which takes place from the 5th to the 8th weeks. To conclude, so all these endothelial heart tubes will give rise to the endocardium. Then what is the development of the myocardium? Cardiac muscle fibers develop from the myoepicardial mantle and envelop the endothelial heart tube. So in this section we have seen elaborately the changes in the interior of the bulbous cordis, primitive ventricle, and also the changes in the parts of the bulbous cordis, that is conus cordis and truncus arteriosus. So we have seen in this class development of the interventricular septum, development of the right ventricle, development of the left ventricle, development of the AV valves, development of the aortic and pulmonary valves, and also the development of the ascending aorta and the pulmonary trunk. So we will continue with the congenital abnormalities of the heart in the next section.